well, Ned.
How much $1 Irish? And cost you. They're going to get technically money done.
Call me the show in just a lad.
Hey. Tug a ray. And call you millet the board of a glish in the sassny fui. The order duck a dumb can ein rudder inch of the lads for an area mach no gadagan and law.
Well, by Isaac a mag will rudder keen bonakin.
She need no hard the heart hot tug down a fierce.
Master will chance a behagen.
Jowl chance stocha. Because fair do nain of a sit on shot of Fanak my Jerelish and Jowl Cugger show. Scavillan and Tarmis and UVF or Sorella ration cheer. Sure. Right much. I said damn the 4 of them way nacht.
Tom and Nairi mach machine.
We lost so many fine men in Ireland. Men who were meant to fight and perhaps die in France. None of them expected to end their lives fighting on the streets of Dublin.
Over 6 days in April 1916, Dublin was gripped by a rebellion that left the city in ruins and hundreds dead. These 6 days changed Ireland and the British Empire forever. The Easter Rising is shrouded in myths and legends. But the reality for those engulfed in the fighting was very different.
Open up in the name of the King!
This is a story of ordinary people who were part of extraordinary events beyond their control. It is a tale of 2 key battles fought on either side of Dublin City that Easter week, told through the eyes of soldiers from both sides of the conflict. All events portrayed in this film are from first-hand accounts of those caught up in the Rising. On the Easter weekend of 1916, Dublin was a haven of peace and tranquility. It was a modern city of the British Empire and the commercial capital of Ireland. That Easter Monday, the people of the city, soldiers and civilians alike, took an opportunity to enjoy themselves at the Fairy House races.
Ireland was generally at peace in 1916. There hadn't been any serious trouble for many, many years. You could hardly blame the British for not thinking that Ireland was going to be a problem, given that Home Rule had been parked, the Ulster volunteers were fighting in France, and Redmond's men were there too.
150,000 men from the island of Ireland were fighting in the British Army. The war had taken its toll on Irish soldiers fighting at the front. In spite of these casualties, support for Britain and the war effort was still strong.
When we look back historically at those that served, there was for a while a tendency certainly to look at those who served as having served the British and served under the King, whereas that wasn't really the viewpoint for a lot of soldiers at the time. There were certainly soldiers who were happy to serve for their King and country, but there were also a lot, particularly when you were talking about soldiers who came from the Home Rule perspective, that saw that they were fighting as equals of England rather than for them.
In Dublin, militant Irish revolutionaries rejected this idea. They came together in the Irish Volunteers and saw the war as the perfect opportunity to strike at Britain.
Mi fiawr ni de cwig dig, toch Eamon Ned Daly, mar ciawn cahar yn Cade Cahlon. Dwrt Daly lum, gyda'r si chohoff uchchys dy rwynda, dy corla milita na hoglach, chan airi amach o flanol. Mar gyrmisha fi mar lascan fana, ba mis yn tiendan a sgwil si a rwn leis. You all right?
About a quarter of my company paraded, and I would say perhaps only 1/3 of those were aware they were going into action.
Gone, watch that. Feel. Na carry ordi a vicnail jehinelin. Or no an can pay rot at all a jena yena. Come on, Riley. She's Ray. Okay, she's about Ray.
Right, people!
Here done Cade Cahlon Eishtigi Lum Nomid. At 12 o'clock today, the flag of the Irish Republic will be raised. Hey! No, I don't want any cheering. Our orders are to occupy and defend the area surrounding the forecourts. Communications between our other posts in the city will be precarious. But I want to make it clear that if any of you wish to leave now, then you are at liberty to do so.
I'm not having any of this. Is anyone with me? It's not right! It's not right!
Is that everyone? And I know most of you never expected to be marching out in open rebellion. But this is the day. This is the day we will restore some pride to this land. Can I relive? A finish? Forward!
Imagine Lewin the Koska, Nidig Shedig. Lobra Grania.
Right turn! Quick march! Left! Left!
Near me, Ibron.
Right!
The glúis slua da ara óga amachas halacréf colum kille. Fi gunna ag vorwar acu. Gach sais gunna. Gunna nua shan, pistol a kudaku. Fi der Marshal Dane chéim. Ach, ní ráidir ag goire go mairich, mar baganáló. Agus iad a glúiseacht.
Ned Daly was tasked with taking over the area around the forecourts in Dublin's north side. All over the city, Irish volunteers captured and garrisoned key buildings. Among them were the General Post Office, South Dublin Union and City Hall. On the south side, rebels looked to seal off all main routes into Dublin. One of these was Mount Street Bridge.
From there, you can lay down infiltrate fire and any troops advancing towards the bridge, yeah? George, the Carcass Orlishin.
Ní hastíú mar chlómh wine on pistol a squeal.
George, Torlat Carafar agus Scow Clanwilliam House. By Royer Clanag there Mohra a Shin. Chance go bin and banach I hook troopy na Bratany see Jane Ver and Gahar who in Kingston. Can we do the stuff I'm sure. Lads, how long? Seamus took it to Hain Road, it's burn out Lumsa.
Left, right, left, right, left. Company, ho! Into line, left, turn! Order, arms!
Very good, men, but not good enough. We need to be tighter in formation, rifles hard against the shoulder. In 1916, myself and my good friend, William Hawkin, were commissioned to the Sherwood Foresters, stationed at Watford, and awaiting orders to France. Sergeant Major, move the men off.
Company will move off to the left, turn. Quick march.
Dixon was a lovely man. He wanted to be a soldier from the time he was a boy. He loved marching. He loved dressing up in uniform. He was in the Boys' Brigade. He was a fine cricketer. He was working as a clerk in a solicitor's office down in Devon and bored stiff with wills and probate and conveyancing. He couldn't wait to get into uniform, and he couldn't wait to go to war. He was a bit of an anorak as a soldier, but he was a lovely man.
I had joined up in 1915 and had gone through basic training with lots of boys fresh from public school, all very anxious to prove themselves and show superiority.
Mom, this house has been commandeered in the name of the Irish Republic. Daniel? What's your calculor? You took a brand new ma.
Tommy calculor.
Mahu. Problem shouldn't have pushed on. Right, lads. Stop barricading the doors and windows.
Dordy Reynolds doing troscan a chur ag chola finneog, ach I gwi nach dorhi fujara e. Jini shachun go raibh poblacht fógria, agus riméid of a harin thre Jerison.
All right, boys, come on, let's get this done. Straight in, then, yeah? Come on, you're not in your mommy's house now. Get it together.
In Nija Kujeg, hui me Canada, agus chlóri made in Canadian Territorial Regiment, hun tahi milital. Trace chimpa 3V, honig ganivri sasna huig malostin, ag gen of Fistruchan. Vies congressional errors of film. An ihishin, ag fogam of agast agus machola arm mi yig, dog me chundola wale. Ag togal low my rifle Lee Enfield.
All right, boys, come on, let's get this done.
Seamus Grace and Michael Malone were two working class men. Friends for many years before, but also, if you take a look at Lieutenant Michael Malone, he was a carpenter at the time.
Lads, that's great.
And was very unusual for the Irish Volunteers to have tradesmen as officers. Most of the officers and leadership would have been from the professional background.
Among the volunteers who mobilised on Dublin's north side were two brothers, Frank and Jack Sheldice.
A good number of the local residents, especially those who had relatives fighting for England in the European War, were very antagonistic towards us. And their womenfolk, especially, made the fight none the easier.
Why don't you fight the bloody Hun?
Nice to see we have some support here, Jack.
Well, the volunteers saw themselves as freeing these people. It's what they obviously intended ultimately to do, to free them and improve their lot. But the immediate reaction, of course, is that they put barricades up, that you couldn't get through to get food, you couldn't get to the shops, you couldn't get to work. The reaction, of course, from the people would not have been good.
They love us here, sir.
That they do. Still, hard to expect anything else when most of them have loved ones waiting to die in some trench in France. Jack Rave hís ar Stocha. Frank?
Sir.
I want you up on the roof of the Jemison Malt House. We should have a good field of fire from up there. Make sure the Tommies keep their heads down.
Yes, sir.
Well, lads. Jack, you're to come with me. Vice Commandant Beasley's identified an old pub in the corner of North King Street with a commanding view of this junction. I want you and your men to garrison it. You need to hold that position for as long as possible.
Yes, sir.
British attack should come from this direction. Vital that we hold this position.
The Irish volunteers prepared their defences, evicting ordinary Dubliners from their homes. Long-time residents of North King Street, Sarah Hughes and her husband Michael, opened their doors to their neighbours. Families had become refugees in their own community.
On Tuesday, the 25th of April, I was turned out of me house by the Sinn Féiners. Me husband and I and our children went out and took refuge at number 172 North King Street, Sarah Hughes' house.
Where Daddy was involved was at North King Street at Riley's Fort, as it was called. It was a strong point at the intersection of North King Street and Church Street.
Remember, you got to see them, but don't let them see you.
Pierce Beasley was the next in command of the Four Courts garrison under Ned Daly.
You're shooting from here. I want to block that off there, okay? That's it, more stuff. Bring it in.
Pierce was Daddy's immediate officer in charge.
Okay? You don't want smashed glass going into your eyes.
Ag cúine na sráide. Bhí títorne agus an tanam Riley ó Rahli os crun na finneoga. Bhí ná dúnta agus cólan ar na finneoga. Áit anhabhachtach a bay.
Take that down from the window. You can't see out there. Block it up nice and tight. More, even more stuff here. That's it, lads. You did a great job.
Fuair Shelver an áit agus dan na buchalí go deireann an seachtain. Bhí cá fuilteach fíoch for a siúltín bud áite sin. Og na buchalí Riley's Fort. Dóní Rahli ar an dig.
Emanating from Riley's Fort were a series of barricades down Church Street, North King Street and Constitution Hill. These acted as strong points against any British assault. The old pub at the crossroads of King Street was the linchpin of Daly's garrison, commanding all the approaches to his headquarters in the Four Courts.
See all that area. That's it, more stuff. Bring it
From
up.
here, Pierce Beasley and Jack Shouldice would be responsible for holding back any British advance.
Good. Keep it going. You got it there, Jack. You got it?
Yeah. He can't see you and you can see him, yeah? Perfect.
Supporting them in the roof of the Jemison Malt House was Jack's brother Frank, a sniper with commanding views over the area.
At the end of Easter Monday, the 24th of April, the Irish volunteers had occupied a number of key buildings in Dublin City. The British military had been taken totally by surprise, but they regrouped very quickly. One of the reasons for this was because the Irish volunteers had failed to cut the phone lines, and they were able to call for help from two places. One was the Curragh in County Kildare, and the second was to England.
In the chaos and confusion of those first hours of the rising, as the British High Command awaited the arrival of reinforcements, ordinary soldiers often accidentally stumbled across volunteer positions.
Where the hell did he come from? Get him! Get that gun loaded! Get it loaded! Somebody bloody shoot him! He's gonna launch us!
Daddy came across a lance of the Lancer And he found it and he wedged it into a manhole at the intersection and tied a tricolour to the top of it. And that impromptu flag flew right through the whole week, right to the end of the fighting on the Easter Saturday.
Caught off guard and outnumbered by the rebels, the British High Command responded by rushing Irish regiments of the army based in the Curragh to Dublin.
When the rising did actually come about, they certainly didn't have the troop numbers available within Dublin at the time. They were quite worried about what might happen if the rebellion spread to other parts of the country, and it was a very real prospect. There was also the possibility and the worry that the rebellion could receive even support from Germany. So they had to react before it had the chance to become a much bigger problem.
By April, I was beginning to wonder whether the entire duration of the war was to be spent in English billets. Sergeant Major, form the men up. That's live ammunition, men. Let's put the cigarettes out.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir.
C Company! Fire up!
Then, at 2 a.m. on Easter Monday, 1916, we received our entrainment order. Half the battalion didn't believe it was real.
Attention!
The Vickers machine guns and the grenades are to remain here. What is needed are men, not weapons. Are your platoon ready?
No, sir. Most of the men don't even know how to load their rifles. Any idea where we're going? There were rumors we're being sent to France.
I might as well tell you, but keep it to yourself, mind. We're going to Ireland. Apparently there's been some trouble over there. I'm quite looking forward to it myself. My wife's Irish. I sent her and the kids back to Dublin when the Zeppelin raid started. Let's hope it's not all fighting and I get a chance to see them, eh?
I'm sure you will, sir.
Good luck, old chap.
Sergeant Major, prepare to entrain.
Home up!
Dietrichson himself was a barrister living in Nottingham, living very well in Nottingham. He had married an Irish girl, one of the Mitchells wine family from Dublin, also a very wealthy family. So they were two wealthy families together. And Dietrichson didn't hesitate when war broke out. He gave up his legal practice and joined the army and was commissioned into the Sherwood Foresters. By the time they came to Ireland, he was adjutant.
Recruited from the mines, factories and villages of the English Midlands, the men of the Sherwood Foresters had signed up to fight in France. In April 1916, these volunteers had been preparing for the coming summer offensive on the Somme.
Here, Fad. Where are we going?
No idea. Must be France, though. Fritz have probably got a big push on, and they needed Sherwood Foresters to come and save the day. Just like Robin Hood, eh?
Too nice.
All right, lads.
Where are we supposed to be going, Ben?
Alright. We're too bloody early for this.
Someone says we're going to France.
Get the food there.
No one seemed to know where our destination was going to be, although there were several likely places. The troop trains were packed, and when we left Watford Station, everyone was cheering and waving flags. And that was it. The Sherwood Foresters. We were off to take part in our first serious engagement.
With British troops coming into Dublin from all directions, the city now was setting a course for destruction. It seemed as if the Irish volunteers were in a hopeless position.
Well, there was this imputation that the rising was the nature of a kamikaze blood sacrifice. And this always irritated my father and Frank and their colleagues very much. They didn't see themselves as kamikazes. A close strategy had been developed in house-to-house fighting and barricades, protection, that kind of thing.
That's it, Frank. Put your back into it.
At the same time, there was a strategic plan. that there was an escape route up into Drumcondra and the North Circle Road and out through North County Dublin to County Meath. But of course, this was contingent on most of the country rising, the full volunteer strength, and also them having the German weapons.
In the months before the rising, envoys were sent to Germany to acquire arms from the imperial government. 2 weeks before the rebellion was due to begin, a ship left port with the weapons the conspirators so desperately needed. On April 21st, disaster struck. The Royal Navy intercepted the ship and its precious cargo. The rebel leadership were faced with a dilemma. Without the German guns, could they continue? The matter was taken out of their hands by the figurehead of the Irish Volunteers, Owen MacNeil.
He heard that the Odd, a ship laden with arms and ammunition, had been intercepted by the British Navy. Roger Casement had also been arrested as well, and he decided that the insurrection, which was planned for Easter Sunday, should be cancelled. And what he actually did was he sent a number of couriers around the country cancelling that mobilisation for Easter Sunday. But what was even worse, he actually printed it in the Sunday newspapers.
The leadership delayed the rising by 24 hours, but the damage had been done. In the confusion, only about 2,000 of the 13,000 Irish volunteers mobilised that Easter Monday, most of them in Dublin. The conspirators' plans had fallen apart.
Níl chance a gine héimeis. An chuid eile den tíar fós na gcuid lepacha. Níl éon gearmaní chun teach le muid a thárthal. Tá muid den hain. Níl an an isteach ceist dáma. Speaking to Nori Huckus na Sastin ach trú a bheith sac a bachún. Bhálam míhall agus Paddy ó le bháile. Níl siad an sé déag fós. Cáid cuioinúir a gcuid máirecha.
Níl unta gasúir. Seo le bháil iad.
Míhall, Paddy. I'll take those. Okay, I have some urgent dispatches I need taken to the city.
Sir, we won't stay and fight. We're ready for this.
I know he's there, lads. But we all have to obey orders, okay? Lad, good luck.
Hig na muchlí nach raibh sa teachtarachtaí ach leisce chuirín do chuinál an guntuairt. Ag timpeall leanaí go dóir maidin, dag si trí fuinneog go bhí sa Jean, agus chuaigh siad thar cúpla Jean eile. Iad grúm a galore, mar bhí sé ráite leo gan fille.
Bocht. Bhí sé nuach sláinte le tamla Noose. A chuid néar go láite bhfuil sad.
Cantá talúint. Daniel, how do you ceart galore? Má bí búrtha. Tú cóta dom. Tú dom an cóta.
Tay, Daniel. Is lig do ski.
Short on men as it is.
What use will he be in a fight?
An níhe sin, chus a cóta sivíalta Thar a chola arm agus dúirt Reynolds leis a go bháile agus a heachtarrás an rís nuair a bheith feabhas air. Níl sé riamh.
Do an iritside or a reeve, Bridget. He's a crease. Tá an car plód hello.
Tá lads agun trainal to gama. No big fatty sir. Ní an finis as nig jarma go dó ar an tre the curry shoot sus.
Tá súla gom.
Will wet she's ní sgurd a go vecamid. Beidir gio im adolas.
An éitig méid dul she's gléiste mar seo. An éitig.
Trugs mé na stocha. Rocky mé she's lan féin. Cumad zúlamach agus bula mé lech an seo a gian óra clig.
Bonjour, madame.
Enjoy yourself. Where on earth do you think you are?
Do you idiots not know you're in Ireland? The Paddies have started a rebellion. Now, the good news is you've got a lovely long march into the city. Now, get to it. We're moving on. I'm sorry, miss. You're going to have to clear her off. This is a restricted area.
No problem, Sergeant. I'm always happy to help.
God, I hate this sitting around.
Patience, Seamus. We'll be in action soon enough. Here. I'm Cardiff, they're shin gone small.
Yeah, if I go run the go roads, go find Gertchen.
But what's their Cardi, mate, throw them hail? Be mega mahaga fresh. One more which sneed org to couple of douche mach.
Current the wind is there, Michael. Hey, she made Atna Toggenworth. Near Larry with Hain Reeve. And we're cloning it.
The herny so gagam, Willie. Be mar an war like Halig fast nies. Listal mitch na hogli like Hale, needs like 3 dag. Railish na hain took the original Honigan home rulistach.
Ken Catland na holding in will she?
The Dublin Fusiliers.
Let's still share shoot.
Let's talk. Dragger she Gleach Redmond. Dort she garoshe the Hulgus ag Aaron Tridgen and Hon. Cred sheet in our era gamach na sasni buiach the weir she'd boss or son of Corona. Has me na eye, agus na eye a rális na go bancha beheg and goga sin linne, fan a glana machas or dear hain Aaron a chussant. Bhí Willie ceann donna riamh, this dal sé réanos. Níor leabhar me leis sin sin. Níor am ggéire aon bhaint bhagam leis. Fuair sé bás in Ora, Flanders. Dúirt sé nach runam ach Amadán ag taca leis na hóglaí. Gníana sé níos mór san na hair and ag trid sa rank.
Seamus!
We have company.
Seamus! Seamus, the doctor gagwindit.
Michael, show him a gripper Bridget agus May Cullen. Version the builis fiar gum and a man that walk through reef.
Dhéanach an roiir den mórteagaí sin maithas daine. Ceamas gur dearmid Jane Torrey.
I couldn't sedate me darmid the universe.
Tá Doris Tussie blockáte. Agus ní féidir si bh legacies teach. Cur na teachtarí sa musca litrach.
Tá na sasannig a teacht. Tá si de dear a Kingstown. Tá na mílta a có ann.
Mágus ag tanolalas. Á bhí bortha. Bhaim a dréag up.
Fun! Seamus' store, an anam day tor hour the theme.
I'll be grand.
English troops continued arriving into Dublin. By midday Wednesday, 12,000 soldiers had landed. The noose was tightening on the rebels.
British Army, they were able to mobilise troops extremely quickly to get them actually into Ireland and on the ground. A 2-day turnaround is amazing. It was only the Monday afternoon that General Sandbach had actually received his orders, and then to actually have his men ready and to get them to Ireland so quickly was quite extraordinary.
Most of the rank and file were pretty raw soldiers, and they came very ill prepared. I think it was pretty careless of the British High Command to throw in such untrained troops, because if they didn't know then, they quickly found out that the rebels which they were going to face were not ill-trained and were in fact very skilled and on home ground and were pretty effective.
The rebels are preparing to oppose our troop movements from Kingstown to Dublin. You will advance in 2 parallel columns. The 5th and 6th Battalion of Foresters will advance inland along this road here. The right comprising the 7th and 8th Battalion of Foresters, will follow the coast road inland through Balls Bridge, cross here at Mount Street Bridge. The destination in both cases will be Army HQ at the Royal Hospital in Kilmainham. Didrikson, I want you to command the lead company into the city. You will disperse your platoons as follows. 1 in advance, 1 to clear the houses overlooking the road, 1 to deal with the side streets, 1 in support. Every house and side road will be searched and cleared. One more thing. We have received intelligence that the rebels have garrisoned a schoolhouse on Northumberland Road. I expect you will meet with some resistance from there. Fall in 10:30 a.m. Now, dismissed.
It was better for the British not to receive any intelligence at all, rather than receive the intelligence that the schoolhouse was occupied on Northumberland Road. Unknown to the Sherwood Foresters, the schoolhouse had been vacated on the Monday night. It was empty. This would cause major problems for the Sherwood Foresters because they believed that that building was occupied. They did not know that 3 other buildings on that street and on the bridge had been occupied by Lieutenant Michael Malone and his men.
The Sherwood Foresters marched to St Stephen's Schoolhouse, took them up the broad expanse of Northumberland Road and into the path of 3 volunteer garrisons, which were situated in St Stephen's Parochial Hall, 25 Northumberland Road, and in Clanwilliam House across Mount Street Bridge. The Parochial Hall would play a minor role in the fighting. At the centre of the coming battle was the now demolished Clanwilliam House, with its commanding views of the canal and the surrounding streets. 200 metres away was number 25 Northumberland Road, which sat in a crossroads that overlooked the main routes into the city. This leafy road would play a pivotal role in the rising.
The whole Northumberland Road, Mount Street Bridge area was obviously an upper class, middle to upper class area. It was loyal to the Crown. You hear the stories of soldiers being greeted, being offered tea and refreshments, etc., as they were marching into Dublin. So an area where they were welcomed.
It was a very fine spring day, and they marched from Kingstown along the coast road. The people that came out to meet them were delighted to see them. They were pressing upon them sandwiches and bananas and cups of tea. It's only when they reached Northumberland Road that they began to learn the true nature of Irish relations with the English.
My grandmother, because of the Zeppelin bombing of Nottingham, she decided to leave Nottingham at the time, and she decided to go back to her family in Blackrock. She had heard that the British troops were in Dublin, so she went to support them as they walked through the streets. And absolutely by chance, she noticed that her husband was there.
Freddie! 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 Say hello to your daddy.
At you, soldier. How did you know we were in Ireland?
We heard the regiment had landed, so we came down hoping to see you.
I'm glad you did. When this whole business is over, I'll spend some time with you and the children. I can't imagine they'll send us back to Watford straight away. Are you being good children for Mummy?
They are.
And how are you coping?
I'm fine. Do be careful, Freddie. I love you.
Oh, I don't think we'll see much action. I'm pretty sure it'll all blow over soon. I better not get left behind. I love you too.
Biggie rig, lads. Ná squeal, go closig sib uimse.
Christ on a middle mac go on.
If they didn't know, they ought to have known that they were marching onto well-entrenched rebels, well-armed rebels, well-trained rebels, who were going to give them a hell of a fight.
Get up, you sissy dogs! Where's that bloody firing coming from? Window, to the right.
That one up there.
When we were young children, I got two sisters, my mother would often talk about it and tell us what had happened and how she remembered standing there, seeing him walking past, and the great excitement of my grandmother meeting him, and then the terror of the fact that she never saw him again afterwards.
In the first volley of shots, 12 Sherwood Foresters were hit and collapsed on the road. They couldn't believe that they were under fire, under attack in Dublin city.
Bhí marúil ar na Tommies. Ní raibh isciú carvas around a pillar ag seacht. Agus bhí a chud marúil bhá bhéadú.
Good luck, old chap. Let's go, man.
Come on, watch the roof. Watch the walls. Watch the road. Watch the window. Keep moving. Keep moving.
Bhí shellamh acu ag gach teach a bhí ag point-blank range. Agus an sin tháinig siad níos ciúr dún. Bhí orm ri ó inneog go foinneog ag géir a scuile low.
It was a baptism of fire, all right. Over 100 casualties is a terrible loss to one battalion. The more so since my one friend from the ranks, William Hawkin, who was commissioned on the same day as myself, was shot through the head on his first day of active service. It was my job to write and tell his mother, who thought him still safe in England.
To be fair, when the nurses appeared on the canal side and started tending the soldiers, the rebels held off their fire. Not always, but most times they held off their fire, and so did the soldiers. There was a kind of ceasefire to allow the nurses to attend the wounded. And there was a lot of wounded, and a lot of dead, and a lot of blood.
We advanced in rushes, taking cover where we could. Bullets were flying all around us. It was a baptism of fire, all right. Over 100 casualties is a terrible loss to one battalion.
Bhí marú ar na Tommies. Ní iscu carvas around a pillar ag seacht. Agus bhí a chud marú bhá bhéidir.
Leave him! Come on, move on, move on!
Thank you, Private. Notes. Bring your men up from reserve. You will support the attack. And Notes. See if you can rustle up some grenades, will you?
I'll see what I can do.
Get me Irish Command HQ on the line. Quickly! General Lowe, sir, this is Colonel McConkey of the Sherwood Foresters. Our men are facing stiff resistance and the advance into the city has stalled. However, I believe I have found a way that we can outflank the rebels' position.
No. You must press home direct frontal assaults until you overwhelm the rebel garrison at all costs.
But, sir, pressing forward is suicidal. We will lose many more men.
You have your orders, Colonel.
Yes, sir.
They were officered by people who seem to have the arrogance of the officer corps very often, that they assume that they're amongst ignorant natives whom all they had to do was wave their sword at them and they were going away, because the Mount Street Bridge is almost a classic of Charge of the Light Brigade stuff. Go on, go on. All they had to do was go up Bagot Street. Take Dublin Castle area, take Jacobs, no problem to them. Instead they were going to charge.
The British High Command was determined to press forward with disastrous frontal assaults. With only their rifles for protection, scores of soldiers had been slaughtered on Northumberland Road by the well-barricaded Irish volunteers. But the tide was about to turn. The next wave of Sherwood Foresters came equipped with heavy machine guns and, more importantly, grenades. With these tools, the British tactics might finally work.
They managed to manoeuvre around the back of 25 Northumberland Road into a laneway called Percy Place. There the soldiers managed to climb the wall at the rear of 25 Northumberland Road and force an entry through the back door.
Nachrid aine a dhearan leat nar bhraisiad agla riamh. Bhí orintha go raibh an tread, chomh fíochmhar. Go raibh mé róitiad tíobh hirir do mar rifle. Bhí mé crutha ó bhun go bór leis an agla. Agus an tain ó raibh mé an faois bháil ón bhatias. All ar joir am squeal rush.
Grace took cover behind an old metal stove, and that is what saved his life. The British left the building, not knowing that Grace was still alive and hiding in the basement.
On the north side of the city, Ned Daly's battalion had been encircled by British forces. The noose was tightening around his men.
Get it! He's there! Come on, baby, come on!
Frank! Nach with one arm machine gun china, nu tá sé dine slodge and slodge. Sheelam go vas Jarvis Street atá sé, ach nílam cinch. Buggy job. Take these and find that position. We can't move in the street with them firing down on us.
Tashi Agam. They are in the hospital, sir.
You, take the field glasses and act as a spotter. Ní bhaid ag chance one out, Frank. You have to each man first time. Good luck.
I suppose that quick turnaround, the whirlwind of getting these soldiers into action, a full division, a huge amount of men and logistics that actually goes with them, is quite extraordinary, really. And there are stories of things like the Sherwood Foresters leaving grenades behind in barracks and not having enough room to get machine gun teams onto boats to get them into Dunleary or Kingstown as it was then. When you hear those stories, it's very easy to understand why there was so much confusion when they actually did finally get into action in Dublin. A couple of days prior to the outbreak of the rebellion, they're fully expecting that the first place that they would see any action would be in trenches in France, and all of a sudden they found themselves on streets in Dublin, a completely different environment and a completely different situation to the one which they had expected to find themselves in.
With number 25 captured, the Sherwood Foresters now turned their attention to Clanwilliam House, across Mount Street Bridge.
It was 5 p.m. when the order to advance came through, and that's when we took our part in the rebellion.
Fun. Close to the wall. Tall game.
Okay, move forward. Keep close to the wall.
Squeal!
Move it, lad! Crisscross, go! That wall! There! Tommy! Take out forward! Head down! Very calm!
Tháinig slua go hrúpi na Bratainna I Geneva in Noose bór Northumberland. Thug cuid acu ruthar faoi Hach Malone, ach thug an chuid is mú acu air an rathad. An muid fáilte rumpud na píle, chá neara Noose. Chun sí dorthú teacht.
On the bridge! Take him out!
Whenever we had the opportunity, we would rush houses with small troops of men, and that way we advanced gradually. But the fire we were under at times was terrific.
And as the fighting went on through the day, they were advancing on the whistle, as they had been training to do on the training fields of Watford.
Keep close to the wall! Get your head down! Keep close to that wall!
In the end, by the time they reached Mount Street Bridge, they were crawling and walking over each other's bodies. It was pretty ghastly.
Keep your head down! Window! First floor!
Bhí mar fionsí is gach tro. Bhí man an pléis gan a chlustáil hí staire, agus bhí deatach ar fud na háte. Húmar sí staire, ag cuinál gar go bhála. Ag go le seach sa siomra gléista, tháinig mé Paddy Doyle agus Dick Murphy ina lí marv. Bhí a rifle fósing rí má lábh ag Murphy.
Lads, good luck with. The feds going in with the lay in. Come in, cool in this. Time brodo lasif. Tá for dulgus dente gach end in a good. Cause the over swinch took the Tommies. A third term. Oh, Christ. Mick Malone. You'll wash your mess too. You're cart down the hen, look at Shemus at alcohol and chin low hen.
First the mach. But the McKinshaw. Sure, the Mick Roch lick boss all like love and assassinate.
Dog my Reynolds book for an Orlor. Il loch on fulla. Tom Walsh a Lee Tivlesh. Agus me géalú. Bhí man an na saidrí a chlustáil ag liúra agus ag céiliúra tíomh me in Mount Street.
When I had time to stop and look around and see all my dead comrades just lying there in the road. I mean, this was the first time they'd ever fought, and it was their last. Looks like you had a lucky escape, sir. Irish bastards. I'd like to kill the bloody lot of them.
You see the nurse there? She's Irish. Everyone here helping is Irish.
Why did they do it, sir? When we're at war? When their own boys are in the trenches dying?
They believed in something, I suppose.
The Foresters took enormous casualties, 183 wounded and dead. The rebels were using Houth Mauser guns with soft-nosed bullets, which entered fairly neatly into the body but exited with a very large and messy wound. And so the soldiers were going down with very serious wounds indeed.
Jesus, fucking shinners are using dum-dum bullets. When are we going to get the chance to give them a taste of their own medicine? It's all right, it's outside. Town's riddled with fiends. You can't trust any of them mix.
Bullet! Stop talking rubbish. Get your kid together, we're moving out. They're sending us to the other side of the city. Place called North King Street.
Finally, we take the fight to them.
I mean, when we look at the British Army, we do generally think that we're looking at an experienced army, probably the best in the world. But we forget that it's made up of men, for the army that came here, of men with little and no experience. They got as far as Mount Street Bridge, where hundreds of their colleagues had been killed and wounded. At the time, little was known about the effects of war on the individual in it. And these people would have been traumatized by what happened here. You do things in war that you wouldn't do in ordinary life. It changes you, and it does not change you for the better.
The battle now moved to the tenements on the north side of the city. And this time it would be the citizens of Dublin in the firing line. With the main route secure, troops began to surround Ned Daly's volunteers garrisoned on North King Street. The English were not going to have it easy. This area was a warren of densely populated small streets. Moving a large force of men in this part of Dublin was almost impossible. The British attack could only come from one direction, down Bolton Street to North King Street. Their aim was to cut Daly's garrison in two. The target of this assault was Riley's Fort, which stood on the crossroads of North King Street and Church Street. Riley's was the beating heart of Daly's position. The job of defeating Daly's 1st Battalion fell to the South Staffordshire Regiment and their commanding officer, Colonel Henry Taylor.
We have established a cordon around the area being held by the rebels. Any adult male found within the cordon is to be considered a rebel. Do not hesitate to destroy any building being held by the rebels.
The South Staffordshire Regiment, like the Sherwood Foresters, was drawn from Lichfield and Staffordshire area. Not very well trained, but slightly better trained than the Sherwood Foresters. And they were the relief battalion. They came up behind the Sherwood Foresters, relieved them at Mount Street Bridge, and then went on to do some fighting in the city centre, in which the reputation of the regiment suffered gravely.
Get into position. We will press home the attack. Good luck, men. Dismissed.
Assault on the enemy position has failed. We've been forced to retire.
We're making no bloody headway, Captain. The rebels are too well barricaded. A frontal assault would be completely useless. It's time for a change of strategy. We shall play these Sinn Féiners at their own game. I want you to get a couple of armoured cars to these houses. Get a company of men into each. When they have secured the premises, they are to begin tunnelling through the walls into the next house, and so on, gradually outflanking the enemy. When they come in line with the enemy barricades, they are to open fire. A sustained assault on the enemy position will begin at that point. And remember, Captain, any men caught in the houses are up to no good and are to be considered enemy combatants. The civilians should have cleared the area by now. Dismissed.
Very good, sir.
Well, the area around North King Street was extremely difficult for the British Army to fight in. There were large buildings, there were many windows, there was large numbers of civilians. It was one of the worst places that the British Army found themselves within during the rebellion. They suffered large numbers of casualties trying to take it, and obviously because of that they felt that they needed some sort of innovation, some way that they could actually change the tide of the battle.
They devised a plan of using armoured personnel carriers. These were lorries, flatbed Daimler lorries, and smoke boxes from the Inchicore Railway Works mounted on the back. The makeshift armoured personnel carriers were driven at high speed into North King Street.
Every bullet clanged and jarred through your head. It wasn't possible to fire back either. You couldn't discharge a rifle in that confined space. Stay close behind me, men. When the door opens, go straight for the nearest houses and get inside. Stay in cover and only fire when you have a clear target, right? That way, you may get out of here in one minute. We backed the tank into a pub and we all poured out.
Get your asses in here! Hurry up! Christ!
It wasn't until the next day we discovered one fellow had been hit just as he got out.
These vehicles reversed up to the doors of a number of tenement houses on that street. The soldiers debussed, kicked in the front doors, and then took up positions within these tenement houses.
Dancing. Keep an eye on those rooftops, right? The worst thing was staring out into North King Street, scanning the rooftops, constantly peering into the night until my eyeballs felt like footballs.
Shinners on the roof!
One young fella was certain we'd been fired on from behind a chimney, so he riddled the stack, bringing the whole thing tumbling down. A complete waste of ammunition. There wasn't a shinner in sight.
Ceasefire! Ceasefire, men!
They then began mouseholing. That means tunnelling from one house to the other, bringing them nearer the volunteer positions.
I was in command of the 2nd 6th South Staffordshire Regiment. Early on Friday, I had attended a briefing with Brigadier General Lowe, commanding the operations. He instructed us that no hesitation was to be shown in dealing with these rebels, that by their actions they had placed themselves outside the law.
They're being led by a man who I don't think had sufficient experience in his attitude of taking no prisoners, purely from the manual of an imperial force conquering the natives, because he was a military man and they have a profession, and their profession is how to kill and how to kill efficiently and how to do it without it affecting your conscience. And I think he was the wrong man in the wrong place for the job.
It was about 5:30 in the morning when a corporal and 11 men came to the house. They were terribly excited. If I had not opened the door to them, they would all have been shot in the street.
Open up in the name of the king!
You're just in the nick of time, missus. We're gonna blow this place up. 20 men in this house. You, hands up! Search them.
No one will fire on you from this house. We all support king and country. Half the folks on this street have men at the front.
Not fair enough! Look what a bullet nearly did for me. I could have lost my life. Take your men up the stairs!
What are you gonna do? Patrick! Nick!
Don't worry, Nelly. We'll be fine.
Move! Give these Fenian pigs an ounce of English, lad.
Sometime after, I heard a voice upstairs crying, "Mercy, Mercy, don't put that on me." And then resisting as if he was being tied down. The old lodger in the upper rooms heard me husband crying. And as they killed him, heard his last words. "Oh, Nellie. Nellie. Jewel."
In North King Street, the South Staffordshires lost it. They were fighting under ridiculously harsh conditions. It was hot, they were tunnelling through the houses, they were under constant fire, and they were taking constant casualties. And when they broke into some houses and found civilian males, they frankly murdered them. They shot them, they tied them up, they bayoneted them, and they killed them.
A ghastly feeling came over me about 5 in the evening, as I fancied my husband dead. The officer said, "There was one of those men shot through the brain, and it is not a nice sight for you to see." So I told him I only wanted to see one man. My husband. The following morning, a corporal came and asked me if I required any privilege. I said, "I require no privilege, only to be allowed to bury my husband, who was innocent."
Colonel, I really must speak with you. Your men are guilty of a terrible outrage.
My men are guilty of nothing. They followed orders and put down a violent rebellion committed by traitors to the Crown.
15 innocent men and boys lie dead on North King Street, murdered by your soldiers. The perpetrators must be brought to justice. Now I want to know what you are going to do about it.
Nothing! My men did their duty. If residents of this street were killed, I can assure you, were they not combatants, they were aiding the Sinn Féin rebels and as bad as them. I stand by my men's actions today. We are at war. Take this man out of my HQ now! Myself, my adjutant, and other officers were constantly up and down King Street, and we received no complaint of any sort from any resident as to men having been shot, and no complaint of any improper conduct on the part of any of the men. My men were fired at, and they fired back. And any person in the upper rooms of houses, civilian or soldiers, might easily have been shot in that way.
A military inquiry into the massacres was presided over by Colonel McConaughey of the Sherwood Foresters, whose men had suffered such devastating casualties on Northumberland Road. He found that no individual soldier from the South Staffordshire Regiment could be held responsible for the killings.
Tragedy about these atrocities, which occur from time to time where all men fight, is the cover-up that occurs afterwards. And there was a cover-up of what the South Staffordshires did in North King Street. Nobody was ever arrested. The soldiers that were known to have participated in it were shipped out pretty quick.
Take these dispatches down to HQ. Let them know operations are completed here.
If you cover it up, it looks like a conspiracy. It is a conspiracy.
Across the city, the rising was turning against the rebels. However, on North King Street, Ned Daly's men were still holding back the enemy.
Edward Daly, at the end of that Easter week, it was estimated that he had 350 men, women and young boys fighting in and around the Four Courts area. They had held off over 2,000 British soldiers, many of them of the North and South Staffordshire Regiment.
The military party was practically wiped out. If they had kept boring through the walls, creeping up on us gradually, we'd have stood no chance. Some officer, however, clearly lost his head and sent those lads out to their death.
The Tommies ran right under me. All I had to do was fire down upon them. One by one, we knocked them over. It was a terrible slaughter. And to this day, I can't understand why they decided to rush things.
Our supply of ammunition was exhausted. Our rifles were getting jammed with continuous firing.
You're gonna be okay, son. Help us on your way. Come on! Come on!
After 2 days of constant fighting, our garrison had been reduced to 7, 8 almost stupefied men. Lads! We've done all we can here. We're gonna have to abandon our position. You've done your country proud, lads. But there was a sense of pride amongst us that we had defied the might of England.
But it was the cost to human life that ultimately impinged, I think, on Pearse. When he saw the citizens being shot down, and he said to prevent the slaughter, and all the government that was in the GPR, what was left of them at that stage, agreed with Pearse, and that surrender was inevitable.
I'll eat him. Come on, man, gather round. Men. Tom Brodu, lassif. You fought well against overwhelming odds. And I know we still hold most of the positions we took on Monday. But in the rest of the city, the situation is hopeless. I've received orders from Commandant Pearse. We must surrender unconditionally to the British immediately. Even if we wanted to fight on. We must obey orders. This is not the end. Now, when the people realise what we have done, when they see what an Irishman fighting on Irish soil can achieve, then they will rise up and cast off the shackles that bind them. And the next fight won't be like this one. We will learn, we will adapt, and we will take the fight to the British. I may not be here to see it. Agus cús mórtas lum. Gur seas mé tíbh sa bharna boil.
Sinead, chúla tú é ara. Fág bhar gunnaí ar an mabhart. Géiste gilum. Siúla míad amach as an áit seo go bródúil. Mar tá sé sin tiltte go maithagí.
Amen. Guns on the table.
Ned Daly, in an attempt to escape, kept his uniform on as commandant and knew that this was his death notice, although he hadn't been so well known to the British that he might well have taken off his uniform and removed and escaped safely. But Daly was not that kind of man.
The 6 days of the Easter Rising had left Dublin devastated.
The people, they'd lost their livelihoods. In some cases, they'd lost relatives. In many cases, they'd lost their homes. All wars are made of people, and it's something we do forget. We talk about heroics, we talk about, our films, our books, etc., all made up of heroism and great acts of heroism. Everywhere you saw people affecting people, being affected by people. The ultimate end of this was that there were no winners in 1916. The rebellion itself, an absolute failure.
I knew my grandmother very well. She never talked about anything that happened in 1916. The subject was never mentioned. Well, you don't think about the human side. It's not talked about. It's not sort of the way history is taught, is it? That there's sufferers on both sides, and people who have absolutely nothing to do with the decisions or reasons for going to war are the ones who suffer.
There's nothing we can do for him. Nothing we can do. He's gone.
For me, the men who came here were volunteers for France. And if they had died in France, they would be remembered far more fondly than having died in Dublin. But they died in Dublin in a fight which wasn't very glorious. And their memory has been forgotten, swept under the carpet. The graves are very rarely visited indeed. In fact, I and a few colleagues are perhaps the only ones who visit the graves of those who fell in Dublin and are buried in Dublin. And I think that's very sad, for yes, it was a fight that was laced with politics and embarrassing to England and to England's history in Ireland, but they were soldiers, and they fought like soldiers, and they died like soldiers, and I think they need to be remembered as soldiers.
Chui Sheshrag and Three Nashraat in a Kilwainon. The Viog Dinne Fechenterin. A Kilwainon, Cursus Dache Killin Lumhin. Shomer Biog, Gan Laba, Gan Eintros Gon. Hines me heen a macher and Talavas, Hui me Chulle, Trechte.
And with your help, I will not sin again.
Attention! On my command! Ready? Aim! We marched our squads into Kilmainham prison. The men with memories of that day had no qualms about doing their job. Fire!
Heis Bracken lay. Hulme Fosham Urcher Gunny Fleske. Chappas Grev Rint an Ogli Fossa Trid. Hui me Rasha Chulle.
Cover! Order arms!
I can't say I felt much, except it was a job that needed to be done.
Stand at ease.
On sin frab Sergeant Biog Stach agus chris sé láflam. Chappas go láfachaí hu dúir sé. Nor chula túna urchar imagine. Chula me. Cer dé féin. Is dimmi sé. Dimmi sé gan fragre.
Edward Daly was among the first to be executed for his part in the rising. He was one of the most successful volunteer commanders that Easter week. Arthur Dixon was sent to France in 1917, where he was wounded by a sniper, ending his war. Dixon became a Quaker and a lifelong pacifist, dying in his sleep in 1979. Piers Beasley went on to become the IRA Director of Communications during the War of Independence and a senior officer in the Free State Army. After Ireland's Civil War, he retired from public life and worked to promote the Irish language. Sergeant Charlie Faulkner was sent to France with the Sherwood Foresters. He survived the war and returned home to a quiet life in Nottingham. James Doyle evaded arrest and continued to fight the British. After Ireland achieved independence, he faded from history. Although Sergeant Cooper went on to fight in the trenches, he was forever affected by the events in Dublin that Easter week. Michael Malone was buried in the garden of 25 Northumberland Road. A year later, his body was reinterred with full military honours in Glasnevin Cemetery. His old comrade Seamus Grace was there to say a final goodbye. He lived with the guilt of Malone's death for the rest of his life. The Shoallight brothers went to prison for their actions in Easter week. Both continued to work for Irish freedom after their release. When the War of Independence ended, they refused to take sides in the Civil War.
My father had a very high regard for John Redmond. And the other constitutional nationalists that he knew of, such as Francis Ledwidge and Tom Kettle, both very fine poets. In fact, one of his favourite poems, as I recall, that he often used to recite, was the lines of Kettle that went, they died not for a flag, nor a king, nor an emperor, but for a dream born in a herdsman's shed and the secret scripture of the poor.